The conversation we are going to have is going to focus on building community networks and building community networks and being with community leaders. The purpose of this panel, it's going to be larger than what I may think or what I may be thinking, but is to hear from the people who have been leading this process of building communities and healing and helping the communities they work with to adjust and thrive, learning from the community leaders of where things are and what can be done, what resources exist and what else is needed, how can people from the community participate, and how can other people participate in that journey, in that conversation and actions. So we have on our panel, we are with Adoubou Traore. You already saw him a couple of times in the other conversation in the morning, but also in this conversation just finished. Adoubou is the executive director of the African Advocacy Network with the responsibility of carrying out the mission of the organization. He is also involved in all aspects of organizational management, including overseeing administration, programs and strategic planning, maintaining a positive relationship with the board of directors and acting as a liaison between African Advocacy Network and a range of external stakeholders. Adoubou is ANA's representative on several collaborative programs, including the Northern California Silicon Valley Community Foundation and many other organizations that he is part of. We have also Nunu Kidane. I've had lots of opportunities to speak with Nunu to learn from her work and inspire me on how I can do the work I'm doing. And I'm pleased to have Nunu here. Nunu Kidane is the director of Priority Africa Network, or PAN, a Northern-based African advocacy organization. She has worked on issues of global policy as it relates to historic, political, and social developments in Africa, including militarism, race, and migration. In 2012, Nunu was recognized by the Obama administration as champion of change for her work with the African diaspora in the US. She is a founding member of the Black Alliance of Justice, Migration, and many other organizations that Nunu is a part of. We are also with Amaha Kassa. Amaha Kassa is a founder and executive director of the African Communities Together, a national membership organization of African immigrants and their families, which they founded in 2012. He founded in 2012. Amaha has worked as a labor and community organizer for 25 years. Amaha is a licensed attorney who earned his law degree from UC Berkeley and his master's in public policy from Harvard Kennedy School. He is an immigrant from Ethiopia. We are also with Nana Gyamfi. Nana is the executive director of a Black Alliance for Justice Immigration Baji, the largest Black-led social justice organization representing the nearly 10 million Black immigrants, refugees, and families living in the US. A movement attorney for the past 25 years, Nana is a co-founder of Justice Warriors for Black Lives and Human Rights Advocacy, both dedicated to fighting for human rights and Black liberation. Finally, we are also with Guerline and Jozef. Guerline is the co-founder and executive director of the Haitian Bridge Alliance, which assists thousands of Haitians and other migrants who have endured a dangerous journey from their native countries to the US, Mexico border in via South America, crossing as many as 10 countries in search of a better life in the United States. And I will invite whatever in your hearts or whatever, however you do it, I invite the audience to help me welcome the community leaders we have here. And Nunu, what is in your heart?
Thank you, JP, and special thanks also goes to Adoubou for all the work that has been done by African Advocacy Network, by the University of San Francisco to really carve out this very important space for us to have this conversation. And I hope it's not a one-off, that we continue to have these conversations on a regular basis. What is in my heart now is what has been in my heart, and very troubled by what has been happening for the past few months and years. I mean, we just take a moment to recognize that so many immigrant families are being separated from their children. I mean, this is just unthinkable for me. It would have been unthinkable for me a few years ago to think that this would happen in the United States. It's just reminiscent of what has happened during the Second World War. And when we think that this is real and it's happening in the so-called, world democracy and all that, it just really demands of us a moment to recognize how incredibly troubling it is. What's in my heart is also the killing of young Black men that we read in the stories every day. As a mother of Black boys, I have to tell you, it's not my immigrant identity, but that of a Black woman, a Black mother, that truly corrodes my spirit every time I hear it. It's relentless, it's endless. The last thing I'll say, I'm sorry to start off on a litany of such negativity, but and Guerline can speak of this, is this endless deportation of Haitians in the silence from Black communities, including us. The realization that Black bodies are being forced into airplanes and being flown out, and we should be putting our bodies on the line to say this is not acceptable. We should stop this. So I'll stop here and let others continue.
Thank you so much, Nunu. Thank you for sharing that. And I would go to Amaha, given what Nunu just shared, and we have this conversation today on building community networks. How does the building a community helps in situations like this, if to even help?
Yeah, I think Nunu really said it all in terms of some of the crises. Crises we know that we were experiencing through the Trump administration, during the Obama administration, in every administration, since the founding of this country, but which have intensified in recent years, and which we know we're not, going to get a break or much breathing room because of what's changed, who's in the White House. I do think what can change is what you're saying, which is how we organize ourselves and how we build collective power and voice and impact. And I think that is something that we have to do at every level, right? I think it's not just a matter, like I think it's a myth that, I'll speak specifically to Africans, but I think the same is true of other Black immigrant groups. I think it's a myth that we aren't organized, right? If we look at our communities, right, pretty much, before people have even found an apartment or a job, when they get here, oftentimes they've found the church, the mosque, the association, the African market, where they buy the groceries. We are connected to communities. Those communities are not always set up to advocate for us in the American political system, right? They are helping people meet their survival needs. They're helping people find that job, find that apartment. When we're mourning a loved one, helping take up a collection, to send them, send the body home. So we are organized, but we are not sort of organized for collective voice and collective impact. And I think that part of the lessons of the past several years, but including the this year, and the heroic work that people have been doing at the border, at the airports to try to stop the deportation flight, is that nobody's going to do this for us. It is those community networks. It is the organization and collective voice and power that we build for ourselves that will turn things around.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for introducing this conversation on community building. And as we talk about the community, and if you don't mind, I want to also go back to who are we talking about? Who are they? If the people came as an example, the people came as students, as scholars, and they stayed, as we heard from the conversation in the morning, that those who came as because they were fleeing to get the security, or they came for work, or others maybe came for many other reasons from different countries, some speaking French, others English, or not, or none of those. Does that, and unpacking that, actually having a conversation of who are they, where they are coming from, what they come with, and who are they, those community members, if you can do a little bit of describing who are they, the communities we are talking about. If I can start from Nana.
Thank you so much for that question. And I just have to say, first of all, Jean-Pierre, I heard you moderating the first panel before us, and you've just been doing a masterful job. I want to thank you so very much for that. Adoubou, thank you so much for your leadership. Great to see Nunu, Amaha, and Guerline, and so many people that have joined. I'm still vibing off of this panel before. It was great. So looking at who we are, we're so varied, right? The monolithic idea is the one that is the most difficult for us. If, Baji has done at this point 2 now State of Black Immigrant reports, one that is national, another one that came out a couple of years ago that is specifically for California, and you can find them on our website, that we do that kind of breakdown. Where are people coming from? And people are coming from everywhere. In the Los Angeles area where I live, we had a Africa Cup, right? Soccer Cup, just with teams of people that are already playing, as Amaha was talking about, already organizing themselves into soccer teams at the local recreation center. Every country was represented. I'm talking about, there was Cabo Verde, you know what I mean? Mauritania, every country of the continent, every country, majority Black country of the Caribbean. And then even the Black Brits and the French folks got themselves together and made themselves like a Black Euro team, right? And so we're coming from all kinds of countries. Some folks you're gonna see more than others. Jamaicans, Haitians are the predominant group in terms of the Caribbean. If you're looking at the continent, you're looking at our Habesha folks from Ethiopia, Eritrea. You're looking, of course, also at people from West Africa, especially Nigeria. If you go to different areas, you're going to see that you're going to have more predominant folks. So we think about, how we have more Somali folks, for example, in Minneapolis. We have a lot of Liberian folks in Philadelphia and Staten Island, in Minneapolis as well, in Minnesota. So there's going to be different. The most Belizeans outside of Belize, which we don't think of Belize, right? Outside of Belize are in LA and in California. 1 out of every 10 Black people is from Mexico, is a Mexican national, right? And so we're coming from everywhere. We have all kinds of different faiths. We're folks who are, of the Abrahamic religions, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, but in our own forms. But you also have folks that are practicing some level of indigenous practice. You have people that are coming to work, as you said, people that are coming as students, people that are coming as asylum seekers, people that are coming as refugees. So we run the gamut in terms of community. When we talk in terms of Baji, because one of our roles, one of our goals is to unite Black migrants and multi-generational African Americans, for us, African Americans are a part of the community. right? And thinking also, drawing a thread from the last panel, this understanding that when we're talking about who we are as migrants, that's one conversation. But as we stand at that intersection as Black migrants of Blackness and being migrant, we also have to think about being Black. And so we talk about George Floyd and we talk about Daunte Wright, but we don't talk about Dolal Ed, you know, the Somali brother who was killed by Minneapolis police December 30th, 2020. And so he kind of gets skipped over as we get to the next. And we've got to figure out how to combine the work that we're doing to make those networks stronger.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nana. And this is a very helpful conversation in trying to understand that the community does not have just be like a concept, but trying to understand the community. And I will ask you the same question to Adoubou. Does that differentiation of who the people are, the individuals, and how they come and what they come with, who they are, what happened to them or before they came on the journey or here, does those differentiation matter in terms of understanding the communities and supporting them?
Yeah, thank you so much, Jean-Pierre. Today I'm not going to speak French because when I first saw his name, I started speaking
Bien sûr, que oui.
So, I mean, it's a real pleasure, you know, and for me, you know, it's really an honor, you know, to be among, you know, my family members because, you know, you guys, you know, we are family. And most of us, you know, already met before. And something I would like to share with you, just to give you a hint of what may be happening, maybe sometimes, you know, because this is part of our blood, is that, you know, Nunu hasn't shared with you that, you know, if the African advocacy is because, you know, she was one of the first persons, you know, I talked to when you know, I was thinking about creating the African Advocacy Network, and she can speak to that every single step, you know, that we made forward. You know, I always took the time and either call her or send her an email, and she's always been there. And I think that, you know, this is a typical example of, you know, what should be happening. And now, you know, my view about that, you know, whatever the way we come in here or whatever the reason why, you know, we're here, once we get here, I think that, you know, we're dealing with the same reality. And then, and we have something, you know, which makes us, you know, who we are, you know, our identity. You know, we get together, you know, spontaneously. Like, you know, Amaha said it. You go to a store, I mean, you are somewhere you knew you're going to go to the mosque, you're going to go to the church, you're going to go to the store, and then you're going to find someone. So, and I think that, you know, this is what should matter, right? And I always tell people, we have two things in common. We, all of us, you know, the same race, and second, we're not home. And I think that, you know, that should be really, I mean, two rallying points, you know, that should really drive us in what we're trying to achieve. And yeah, you know, we naturally get together. And I think that, you know, what we need to do now is really to be clearly intentional about it, right? And how we look at, you know, each segment, you know, of our community, and then, you know, involve everybody, and then meet up, you know, at the table and really engage in an open conversation to affirm who we are. Because at the end of the day, this is what it is about, you know. And someone was saying it, nobody's gonna come and do for us, you know, what we need to see done. And we got to, so, you know, I mean, you know, just to say it, yeah, we have an existing community now, you know, how do we make things formal? You know, how do we intentionally, you know, go about it? And then, you know, how do we have, you know, I mean, a clear leadership emerge? And I was speaking to someone, I said, guess what? Today, you know, they're killing more and more people, you know, in America, you know, people are just getting crazy. It's really scary. And with people of color, you know, we being targeted a lot. And then I said, what would happen if a crazy person decides that, you know, I'm gonna go specifically about all Blacks? What are we gonna do? Unless, you know, we are formally, you know, I mean, we have formally created, you know, like this kind of power, you know, that, you know, we have built up together, and then, you know, we go out there and get together. Amaha was saying it, and Nana was saying it, and Nunu was saying it. And why, when our people are being deported, we don't just all of us, get out and then say, no, this is not going to happen. And one more thing I'm going to say about the community, and I think we need to keep educating ourselves. And every time I go to a church, every time I go to a mosque, I say, listen, when one of those, is taken out, there's nothing, to laugh about. There's nothing funny about it. We should all of us feel hurt. We should all of us, feel shocked. And then we should all of us, be thinking, what do we do about it? So, to summarize, the way we come here, the reason that we come here, yeah, that's going to be part of each of us, our individual stories, right? But at the end of the day, once we hear, what do we do? Because we have to face it. And so what we're saying is long overdue. And so, yeah, let's continue the conversation. But it's really an honor, to be with all of you guys. And I'm really happy to see you.
Thank you, Abdou. And with that, I hear with what you say here that I was asking about differentiation, and then you helped with actually whether someone, how I understand now, whether someone comes and they don't know how to mail a document because of the language or the other experiences, because the knowledge they bring does not fit, or whether they come from this situation or the other, at the end of the day, they are that corrective, there are similarities that bring us together, but it's still, we have lots of things that bring us together, but as Amaha Kassa said, we are organized, challenging the idea that African communities are not organized, saying that we are actually organized, but not mobilized for collective impact. What does that mean for you, Guerline, if you have a perspective on that?
Thank you so much, JP. I don't know if you can hear me.
I hear you very well.
Okay, thank you so much. And it is such an honor to be on a panel with full melanin, looking at queens and kings there. Nunu, Nana, JP, Amaha, Adoubou. It is such an honor to be here today. And I have been following since this morning at 9. It has been enriching, to my soul. So thank you so much for doing this. It depends on how we look at things. So for us at the Haitian Buddha Alliance, our motto is "Un pile meshai palo," which translates loosely, many hands lighten the load. And if we were to just look at who we are as a people, if we were to go back, from the beginning of enslaved people, and as not only an immigrant in the United States, but also a descendant of enslaved people in the America, going to Haiti, understanding that not only are we organized, but we are collectively organized to make changes, right? When we see we have enslaved people from different countries, different tribes in Africa, imported and transported and transplanted in the Americas, where we form our own identity, we form our own languages, we form our own nation. I believe that is a proof that as Black people, that we are capable, and we have proven that we are organized, not only for self, but collectively, to change the very system of who or what the world is today. Understanding that this is one of the reasons why they continue to undermine the sovereignty of Haiti, because if Haiti does not prosper, then they can prove that us as Black people cannot organize and cannot prosper. So I think it really depends on how we look at things and how we are allowing ourselves to be completely liberated from the idea of colonialism, from the idea of we cannot get together, because I truly believe that we have proven that we can. And together, seeing those people here on this panel and seeing the young people who were before us, we can, we are, and we must continue to collectively push for change.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Guerline. I want to invite the audience. Please feel free to write the question you may have in the chat box, and we will read them as they come. This is a great opportunity to have the leaders all together. For me, I feel like it is a huge, and please take the opportunity to make sure that you ask them questions that you may have. I want to come back to Amaha again with what you discussed about building a collective voice. Building a collective voice. First, we come from some of us, or maybe many of us, I don't know what I can put there, but we come already divided. Even people from same community are actually not a community. Some, they come from the same country, but that not necessarily is the same community. They have one community, they have a community. How do you work on that? Is that part of, or probably part of what makes people organized but not mobilized? Do you see that as a problem, or how? I'm curious to know what you already know, you see about those dynamics.
Yeah, sorry, there's a little bit of an echo going on. I'm not sure. So I think the issue of sort of being divided amongst ourselves by ethnicity or nationality or clan or some of those things. So it comes up a lot, and it sometimes comes up from based on people who've had experience with challenges that come up when we try to organize ourselves, and we have divisions, and not just ethnicity, clan, but political loyalists or opposition to the government, those kinds of things. So on the one hand, those things are real. On the other hand, especially when we talk to certain non-Black, non-African, sort of gatekeepers, heads of institutions, foundation people, those things, those sort of get thrown at us as a skepticism that, as Guerline is saying, Black people can organize themselves, right? Like that we can unite together. And frankly, I think a lot of it participates in this colonial or neo-colonial discourse about quote unquote tribalism. And this discourse that Black people generally, Africans in particular, I hear it in that context, are divided by these ancient ethnic hatreds and sort of like this was I remember having conversations when I was just a sort of a kid, a teenager, with people about talking about that was why South Africa couldn't be liberated from apartheid, right? Because they were going to fall on, those tribal people were going to fall on each other and destroy each other. And so, the truth of ethnicity is in Africa, whether we call it tribe or clan or what have you, is that, yeah, there's always been conflict, and that the very same peoples that fight each other also trade with each other, do business with each other, sometimes intermarry with each other, are interdependent on each other. And so, I think the danger of falling into this trap of saying, that these divisions, many of which were very consciously manufactured and reinforced by colonial authorities to keep us, carving, Gambia out of the middle of Senegal, or dividing, imposing these colonial lines, that they have some reality that means that we can't get together and we can't organize. And you see this, you hear this in the people being like, Africa is a continent, not a country. And it's like, okay, but once we've said that Africa is a continent, not a country, what have we said, right? And the fact is, Latin America is not a country either. But somehow there's a Latino identity and a Latino political organizations. many of which were very self-consciously and recently created by political activists in the 60s and 70s as a conscious political project. And that's what we're doing in many ways with stronger, tradition, drawing on stronger traditions of Pan-Africanism than many other, continents or regions have to make recourse to. The last thing I'll say, because I can just get too long and too passionate about this subject, is America pushes us into almost literally the same boat with each other. We might see ourselves, I might come here and I'd be like, oh, I'm Amhara first and foremost, or I'm Ethiopian first and foremost, but we are first and foremost in the eyes of America and in the eyes of the labor market and in the eyes of the cops when we walk down the street, first and foremost Black, no matter the color of our passport. And maybe we get to be Black and foreign if our accent is strong enough, if we look different enough, if we're dressed differently enough. And so organizing as Africans happens organically without any of us trying to do anything about it. And organizing as Black immigrants happens organically, right? Like in the second generation, especially, right? You see, these organic, lines and connections form. And if you look at where we settle, where we live, where we work, where we make our homes, they are multi-generational African-American communities. So we're not swimming against the tide. We're trying to ride the tide and hopefully get collectively to a better destination.
Thank you, Amaha. That's very helpful. And I want to, while we are discussing these issues that are there, that exist, there are lots of things that have been done. And the people we have here on the panel are among the people whom I know have done a lot to the communities which I belong to. And while we are saying, we are talking about what is need to be done, but what has been done that has seemed to work. I will see if Nunu, if you are willing to share what has been done already in building community in a way that is helpful, in a way that Amaha was talking about, that is the more organized, that in a way that is helpful. What has seemed to work, and if there is anything that has not seemed to work, or where are some gaps, if they exist? What has worked, and if there are some gaps so far with where you are in your work with other community members and the community leaders?
Sure. So I will speak to the experience that we have had directly with Priority Africa Network. The way we work, which is slightly different than the way a number of other organizations work, which is providing direct service. What we did when we started the African Communities Forum in 2006 was to convene leaders from very diverse African community organizations, faith leaders, professional associations, to basically provide space for communities to come and to forge relations, to address issues in common and strategize together. And this really goes back to what Amaha was saying earlier in terms of identity. We recognize that people are organizing on the basis of their national and ethnic identity, worshiping together, socializing together. And this matters because recognizing it and meeting people where they're at meant we were not saying, this is the agenda on which you should come to. We are saying, what is it who you are? You define who you are, and we bring you to the table to help us forge and through a relationship building process, identify common agendas that we strategize around. And we've been doing this for many years and really feeling connected to what is happening in the grassroots, in their words, in their ways and priorities. This has been enormously helpful. What we have struggled with in the past that has slightly changed since Baji came into the scene, and I have to say kudos to Nana and to others, is the really supportive data that has been produced nationally and particularly in California on helping us sort of identify who we are in the bigger context, in the national context, and also in the California context. I know, Amaha, you did something like this a few years ago, and it's long overdue. I hope you can reproduce it. It's so much needed because this keeps coming back, particularly in conversations with funders, is, you know, we are such a minute number relative to the Latinx or Asian community. This numbers game gets thrown at us in terms of impact. And our issues are so diverse, both in terms of who we are as a community. We may identify on national or ethnic identity, and these are not necessarily bad or divisions. They are the basis of how we identify and how we socialize. So there are opportunities for mobilization where we can meet people where they're at. And regardless of how we organize, I think someone said it already, the two identities that are absolutely foremost to our lives are race and our immigration status. So for the most part, we live as immigrants. You know, we function as immigrants, no different than Asian or Latinx immigrants. The difference is that we are perceived as Black people, and the systemic changes that are happening that impact us, some of us are not even aware because we're not part of the quote unquote the Black agenda, but it is probably one of the most impactful in our lives. And so this is a bifurcated kind of conversation. One is on the basis of race and the other one on the basis of immigration. Very rarely are these connected as a common agenda because it is our identity. It's not two separate things. It's, you know, that's who we are. And so we struggle to find ways to be part of the racial justice movement and also part of the immigrant rights movement. And some organizations provide the opportunities and the language and the discourse to pull us into it, but a lot of times it's being in two separate spaces simultaneously.
Thank you. No, I always love listening to what you say. Really appreciate. Thank you. I want to go to Nana with a little with what I've learned about you and your work, and had a little conversation with Budu telling me about what you do and lots of work that you do, and really appreciate it of what you have been doing. And I'm going back a little bit to the conversations we already have from the morning. We are talking about, we have these conversations of the stuck here, the feeling I'm stuck here. There's conversations of the statistics that we were shown of the gaps between education, the African being mostly more educated actually than many others. But when you look at the economic status, when you look at the employment, you see that there is something that that does not go together. The higher education, but less opportunities. And then you go to the students' representation. We look at the hexagon that was extended, but adding more things like mental health. You need to look at that. You need to look at the racism issues, how they play part on that. So looking at those, there are actual problems, and there are many. But also I do know about so many organizations that are working on supporting refugees, immigrants, and so much work and so much, probably, I don't know, in your role, you may know better. So talking about those challenges we are talking about today, do the challenges we are talking about exist because there is a lack of resources Is it because there is a lack of resources, or is it because there is a problem with allocation of resources that exist? I don't know if that makes sense. What is the problem? Is it that there's no resources? The organization that do the work supporting refugees and immigrants that works on anti-racism work, is they not enough, or they are not allocated in a way that is helpful actually to the communities? What have you learned from your work and experiences?
So I'm going to step back a little bit. I'm echoing. I don't know why. Okay. I'm going to step back a little bit from your question and say the answer really is anti-Blackness. That's the big answer, right? As opposed to the resources conversation. What we see with what's happening with the resources is the result of anti-Blackness. So just drawing upon what Nunu has just ended with, right? This conversation about how are we fitting ourselves as Black migrants into the social space? What does it mean to be Black and migrant? How does that impact us in terms of the movements and the work that the immigrant rights movement is doing with respect to future flow, with respect to refugee work, with respect to asylum seekers, right? And how are we not getting the resources? Because the resources exist. Why are we not getting the resources to push in those areas? And then also looking at the racial justice issues, the fact that Black migrants are 76% of us who are deported on criminal grounds. If you're coming from Haiti, it's over 80%. Jamaica, it's over 90%. Countries like Trinidad and the Bahamas, the latest numbers, you're at 100%. Continental Africans, somewhere between 70 and 78, 80%. Why are we detained the longest? Why do we have the highest bonds, right? Why do we have these issues with language access? Why are we 6 times more likely to be in solitary confinement? And if you're talking about Black trans migrants, now you even have more time that people are spending and more difficulty people are having in getting out. That's not just because we're migrant, because we are not committing crimes more than anyone else. We are not, there's no reason that these things are happening to us other than our Blackness. And when we raise these issues, and I'm really pleased when I look back at the history from when folks founded Baji, when folks founded African Advocacy Network, to now the ecosystem of Black immigrant organizations and Black people working on behalf of Black immigrants, even if they're in other organizations, has boomed. But our money has not boomed in terms of the resources for the work that we do because of the anti-Blackness within the immigrant rights movement. And then when we look at racial justice, an organization like Baji, that's our bread and butter, or red, fried plantain and beans, right? That's our thing, looking at that intersection of racial justice and immigrant rights. And when we look in the racial justice world, it's the same thing. When folks are talking about Black people, they're generally talking about African Americans. And so we have the work to do to include our conversations in the piece, and there's not a lot of funding there, and resources there. I will end by saying that in spite of the real fact that anti-Blackness is an impediment for us having the resources that our communities need and deserve, I will also say that we definitely make $15 out of 15 cents, right, as Black people. So that resourcefulness is there, and the community networks that we've talked about are there. And so we're able, when we do it intentionally, to stretch our resources, right, so that we can do this work in spite of the fact that we're dealing with anti-Blackness, as we always have, right? Whether we're talking about multi-generational African Americans or Black migrants, it's like we stretch our resources. Some of us have stretched other people's social security numbers, you know what I mean? Our resources get stretched in order to make things happen so that we can get it to happen. 12 people in the house, no problem. We do what we got to do. But anti-Blackness is definitely an issue.
Yeah, I really appreciate that you were a little bit back before even that to the question. That's very important. And Nunu, you actually just named a thing that is that's really resonates. the Blackness being exclusive, not on paper necessarily, but what is it? How does that look like? The exclusiveness, of the Black. Do you want to say a little bit about that with the Black that seems to not include the Black immigrants?
So I think one of the panelists, the students from the earlier one, spoke to this, the realization that we come to the US with, I am Nigerian, I am Liberian, and the shock of discovering that the only identity that matters in this country, or singular identity that is foremost, is that of race. And so how we live our lives is, as I said, bifurcated. So we have our immediate communities, whether they are communities of faith or, kind of national identity. And then we have our lives sort of outside of that, where we live as members of the Black community. And I think Nana said it really well, that the quote unquote, the Black agenda, the national Black agenda, does not include us. It may not be intentionally excluding us, but it really is setting an African American agenda. What that means is that, they're perceiving an identity of people of, enslaved heritage, people who have lived generationally through Jim Crow. The reality is, who is Black in America today is very, very different. It's very diverse. We are huge numbers of Black migrants, and the census has shown this. The last census 10 years ago has shown this. And I think Manuel Pastor spoke to this earlier this morning, and the census results from 2020 are also going to show that we are incredibly diverse as Black people in America. More Black people have come to the United States since the 1970s than have come through the transatlantic slave trade. And so I think there's a bit of a disconnect here in terms of how the Black agenda is being set, and it is not including us. And even though, as Nana was saying, the ecosystem has shifted to include so many more organizations representing and working to represent the interests and the issues of Black migrants, we are nowhere to where we need to be, both in terms of resource, in terms of impacting national agenda. And we need to have these really difficult conversations with so-called African American leaders or thought leaders to say, we are here, we are you, our issues are connected, and we need to have that difficult conversation of, how do we relate? Maybe not relate, but we still need to have sort of a common agenda that we need to set together.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think that the being more intentional on how the Black includes everyone who is Black. Actually, I think that's a very important comment you just made. I'm going to see if I think there are some questions that were asked. They are probably in the chat box, if Lizzie or someone, if they want to read some of those questions. And the plan we have now is that we're going to answer some of the panelists are going to answer some of those questions between now and 4 p.m. PST, and then we will invite Professor Bill Hing to share a little bit, and then after he shares, we will come back to the panel again when they will be sharing with us what they think we should do as the audience, or what needs to be done. Are there questions that our panelists can answer?
Yeah, there's one question in the Q&A section, and it does say, on the question of Black agenda, including Black migrants, how do you work with the ADOS group regarding policy agendas? And I can post that as well in the chat.
Thank you. Does anyone want to take on that question?
That's a good one. This is Guerline, Jozef, and one thing that we say all the time, and we are in conversation with the ADOS, folks within the ADOS movement, and the way we put it, for example, is me being an immigrant from Haiti, also descendant of enslaved African people, and Nana, who is of Ghanaian heritage, and we have Ethiopian, and we have Nunu. When the police is shooting, they don't stop us to say, hey, where are you from? And so they can hear my accent before they decide to shoot me. So at the end of the day, they see a Black person and they shoot. And it is really hard to explain that reality and use that as a bridge to bring people together, to bring communities together. And one thing that our sister organization, Untitled Black Network, says is that immigration is a Black issue, right? And understanding that very basic reality. So we have been in communications with various people within the ADOS movement, and we are coming to this understanding that at the end of the day, we are in this together. We must continue to forge relationship. We must continue to dismantle the divide and conquer ideology. So we bring us together, because at the end of the day, the system that continues to oppress the African descendant of slaves in the United States is the same system that continues to colonize, right? People in the continent. Is the same system that also colonized the Haitians and the Jamaicans and the Trinidadians and all of those. And once we come to that understanding, we are able to move together as one. But it's getting to that basic reality that this is a system that needs to be changed. And so creating community, creating understanding, dismantle the divide and conquer, and build unity. I think if we continue to do that, we will see, maybe not tomorrow, but we will see a change within different movements.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes, definitely building the unity is very important in this conversation of building community networks. That is really, that's appreciated. So we are going to have, is there another question? I'm trying to see if there's another question. Is there another question that the panelists can respond to?
Yes. Yao asks, can you please address the lack of visibility of the African community voting power and spending power?
I can talk a little bit about, or some about that, particularly about the voting power. Because this was a year, this past year has been between census and get out the count and get out the vote in 2020, beginning really 2019 into 2020. It was so significant and important, both of those issues. And there was such an effort to exclude migrants and exclude Black people, so certainly to exclude Black migrants from both the census numbers, but also from being, from accessing the vote in terms of folks who are eligible. And so there was, Baji was doing work particularly with, again, both immigrant rights movement organizations as well as racial justice organizations. It's one of the places where I found that the racial justice organizations really were more receptive, reaching out. We did a lot of collaborations that included not just Black migrants that were eligible to vote, but also included folks who were not eligible to vote for various reasons, to be able to really press our folks to be able to make significant moves, not just in terms of voting, but also having candidates. So many different places. And I'm sure the other panelists, especially that have folks on the ground, can speak to this as well. We had a lot of different Black migrant candidates, and from school board to local to statewide. You saw a lot of that happening across the country, including places that people don't think about, like the South and the Midwest. And so that, a lot of PACs, political action committees, that are specifically coming from, or led by Black migrants, maybe coming either, country representative or some other form of representation with respect to Black migrants. So that is something that I think is awakening with our folks, where we are, yes, we have our brains on Ghana and what's going on with NPP and NDC and all of that, but we also are thinking about what's happening right here in our communities. And I think the ravishing of our communities by 44.5 really helped people to think more clearly about the fact that elections matter. So I can say that in terms of the voting piece, and it's something that as Baji, we're really looking to be much more aggressive about this year, going into, between now and 2024 in particular.
May I add something that we are seeing? The first Black president in the United States is a third generation Black man whose father is an immigrant from Africa. And we have the first Black woman vice president whose father is an immigrant from Jamaica. So, and we look going back to Shirley Chisholm, who herself is a first generation Caribbean American. So voting power, political power, when it comes to Black immigrants, has always been a part of who we are, a part of what we do in the United States. So I think it's to highlight, right, those people, to highlight the reality that they also of immigrant descent, so that we can continue to highlight and uplift the voting power and the political power that Black immigrants continues to possess in the United States.
If I could just add one more to it, I think I completely agree with everything that has just been said. It's been my experience, particularly last year, and maybe even a decade ago, that it's during particular periods in history, either census or when there is a really controversial election period, that we get approached by movement building organizations to say, we need every vote. How do we get the Habesha vote? How do we get these groups of enclaves that are organized in small sectors and groups? We need everybody to vote. We need to count everyone during the census. So it's a way that, in one, recognizes that there are people who are not part of the bigger picture, but it should not be episodic and periodic, and that it should be that we should be included as part of the movement building agenda on a regular basis. Like I said, primarily within the racial justice work and the immigrant justice work. But I've seen in recent years this recognition that there are numbers of people out there that are not really included. And this is true also with philanthropic groups, that there's a gap that's being recognized, that there are Black migrants who are not receiving the funds that should, but we should not be an afterthought. We should not be approached to say, oh, and someone else is missing, oh, how do we increase the numbers? That it should be part of an ongoing movement building and inclusive of who we are.
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I have another question from Jane.
Please.
She asks, can you share your thoughts about the role of diverse immigrant and refugee organizations in solidarity work? This is reflecting on comments about the National Black Agenda, not including Black migrants.
Jean-Pierre, do you think we could just move on to Bill and then answer these questions and have all the time left over to, just because, is that okay? Or you think it would be too much interruption? I leave it up to everyone, just whatever works best.
Sorry, are we at time for the panel?
So there's no, the only issue is that we thought we were going to, the time extended itself a little bit. We're supposed to end at 4 o'clock right now, and then we would open it up for closing remarks and then questions as well. So in that sense, I think we wanted to have Adoubou and also Bill just give some quick closing remarks. But I think the conversation is going well. So because I know Bill needs to leave as well by 4:15 because of the way we had scheduled it. But again,
I think we can move forward. Some of us do have a hard stop, especially some of us on the East Coast where it's a little bit later. But I think if it's time to move on, then I think we can just share thank our co-panelists and our great moderator.
Karina, do you mean we are going to have we have Bill and then
Adoubou? So we wanted to at 4, just because everybody, some of the speakers have, some hard endings to leave. So the plan on the schedule was at 4 o'clock to have closing remarks by Bill and Adoubou, and then open it up again for questions and any other questions that are left over until 4:30. And I know that conversation, I think, is starting to get to warm up, but I know that Professor Hing needs to leave in actually 5 minutes now.
Thank you. I'm actually very embarrassed, to be honest with you, to intrude. So I'm sorry. I'll be very quick because this conversation is so important. In fact, this day is so important that personally, I'm very humbled to be here and to listen to all of you and to learn from all of you. And I have a personal commitment to all of you that if there's anything that I personally can do or the program can do to help move an agenda forward, whether it be an agenda dealing with African migrants or a coalition, collaborative, happy to be flexible and to work with all of you. I've always learned so much, of course, from Nunu and Adoubou. And, I remember in 2006, Nana, when Gerald Lenoir approached me with the idea of Baji and why Baji was started. It's always been those experiences and to be honest with you, those nudges have always been important and uplifting in my life. I do want to acknowledge very quickly the participation of the students earlier, Hamida and Daisy and Zephy, who are students of mine, and Lizzie Bird, who's been helping with this, who's a student of mine formerly as well. They're brilliant. We couldn't have done this without you. And I also hope that this can be a platform for not just continuation today, but continuation in the future. We're available to all of you for whatever purpose. If you want convening, if you want support, I hope that you take advantage of us. I guess the final thing that I would say is a reminder to all of us that what we're going through now, especially with, as you put it, Nanu, what we went through with 44 and a half, we're going through a period of de-Americanization. That's what I call when many of us are being told that we don't belong here. Even those of us who were born here, somehow we don't belong here. And it's language and actions that are used by what I call vigilante racists, vigilante xenophobes who continue to view the United States through a Western European lens. And we need to stand up to that. And I firmly believe that we're stronger together than we are separate. And I hope we can do that, because this country has this horrible history of a couple steps forwards and then another step backwards. And when we go through periods like this, and especially if government officials and leaders don't do or say anything in opposition to the negativity, then another generations looks at that and they think that they have the license to do that kind of profiling and anti-racist or racism as well. And their license is issued when others around them engage in hate, and the government chimes in with its own profiling. And that's the part of the sad process of racism in the United States. And we need to stand up to that, and I want to be a part of that with you. So thank you again for your wise words and for the experience of understanding, as Manuel Pastor said earlier, that it's we need to be humble and show humility, because we have so much to learn from each other, and the feeling of mutual respect is something that will help us move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Bill. I know that my time is expiring. Sorry, I had 4:30 in my head. That's what I was recently given. But I'm going to do this. I will ask the other people who are still going to have something to say in the closing remarks. I still need a few minutes for panelists. It is one question, if you can, just a few words. The question that I still had to ask, and I still want to ask it, is what support and the structures would you implement? What should the people do? Here we have so many people listening to you as leaders, and it is a process. What would you suggest that people as individuals or people as agency organizations, what should they go and do after this conference? I will start from Adoubou, because we will close with you. Adoubou.
Oh, so these are not my questions.
Just a few seconds or minute, or just a few seconds. What should the people do after this conference? What do you wish people should get out of this? And in just a few seconds, and then I will go to other panelists as well as we close. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think that we all of us agree on a certain number of things. Amaha said it, Nana said it, Nunu said it, and Sister Guerline said it. We already have something existing, right? Mm-hmm. And as I said, how we can intentionally, leverage what we have existing, and then take it to another level. And I think that that's gonna require capacity, that's gonna require means, and as well as engagement, right? So we need, and that's why I said this is like for me this is like a step toward like a larger goal. And now how do we achieve that? And I think it's gonna take really bringing everybody at the level at the table, and also taking into account all the different segments of our community, our youth. We've seen very brilliant young people speak, and then our sisters, mothers, so the women, and also our business community, those, among us who have political ambitions. And so I think that it's going to take all these people together and build up, a leadership, so that even when we speak about the Black leadership, because most of the time when they speak about Black leadership, they mean African American leadership. But, I think we need to be at the table, right? And then, so that, we can take our place, in that leadership. And then, we move forward. I hope I'm going to have the chance to say the closing words later.
Yes, you will, definitely. We will. I know that there is living in a time and living on a time, and we will do one of those right now. Okay. And as we live in a time, I want to also invite Nana. What would you say?
So I would plus everything that my brother just said, but also encourage people and specifically Black folks, whether migrant or African American, to do it. Join organizations, connect yourself up with work that people are doing. You play how you practice. If you don't practice, there's not the day that one of folks talked about, where if they just decide today they're getting rid of all the Black people, or as Nunu was talking about, putting our bodies on the line. If we don't practice doing that on behalf of Black migrants, when the time comes, as it is right now. The past 3 months, we've had higher deportations than under Trump. The past 3 months, we've had no Black people being allowed into this country, barely, across the border. We have a prior, enforcement memo that targets Black migrants. We have, these refugee numbers that are not being increased. That is, again, gonna be a big issue for Black folks who are trying to come in as refugees. So the time is not tomorrow, the time is now. And the need to get involved and engaged is now. There's no need for invitation. It's all a big experiment. You don't have to have a lot of understanding and great knowledge and have read a lot of books. Get in it right now. Get in it. It's happening. You're in it whether you want to or not. Let's be intentional about it. Let's make sure that when it's time to do the plays, that we've done the practice so that we do it well.
Thank you so much. Right now, yes. Go to Guerline. What do you want to close with?
Not much, because after Nana just said, I think Nana really put everything on the table. Over 28 flights under President Biden has been sent to Haiti. 28 flights. That includes pregnant women, babies as young as just a couple of weeks old. We see President Biden allowing women coming to the country, give birth, and then deported or expelled to Mexico, Haitian women. We currently have an average of 10 to 15,000 Black migrants at the US-Mexico border. Those people have been there for about 1.5 to 5 years. Yet we see them getting trapped, extremely vulnerable because they travel in the Black skin. They cannot blend in South and Central American communities. They cannot blend in Mexico. The moment they see a Black person in Mexico, they know they don't belong. They know they are asylum seekers. They know they are migrants. Therefore, they are targeted. It's unbelievable what we are experiencing. At the same time, we see President Biden and his administration refusing to grant TPS for Haiti, that is currently in one of the worst political uprisings we have seen in the past 50 years. And we see the US government just literally put Haiti on a level 4 do not travel, stating that Haiti is an active war zone. Yet yesterday, they had a deportation flight to Haiti. We had TPS for Venezuela. We have TPS for Burma. We have redesignation of TPS for Syria. Why not Haiti? We need President Biden to keep his promises to Black immigrants, to keep his promises to the Haitian community. When he needed our votes, he came to the community and say, I am going to be there. I am going to give TPS. I am going to, support. And we do not want to see a repeat of Trump, who himself came to the community and promised all of those different things, and in turn called Haiti and other African countries shithole countries. So we are demanding, we are tired of asking, we are demanding that President Biden immediately we designate TPS for Haiti, designate TPS for Cameroon, for Mauritania, for Eritrea, and all those countries who are literally in needs right now. So I will just end by the Ampil Men Shai Palu, many hands lighten the load. I just posted the letter for TPS for Haiti, and I'm asking to please sign and push all hands on deck, because we can and we will make the difference. Ampil Men Shai Palu.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. And I think people get the letter, and please sign the letter. Nunu?
Yes, thank you, Guerline. If there's one thing we do today, it's to sign that letter and then to send it out to at least 10 people who need to sign it. We need not everyone to sign it only, but we need particularly Black folk to sign it. I think this is an issue of Black solidarity. Haiti is, and we need to stand with the people of Haiti. The last thing I'll say, in addition to thank you, is, I've been doing this a very long time, and I have moments of serious, almost depression. I just feel so hopeless, especially with what had happened in the past administration. But it's also easy to blame the past administration as if it's an anomaly and it's just singular event. What we have seen is that there is this threat of white supremacy that is affecting all of us as immigrants, as Black people, and we need to organize like we've never organized before. What gives me hope is panel discussions like this. What gives me hope is leaders like many of you in this space that are doing such critically important work, that's what keeps my spirit up. Adoubou, I've said this before, thank you. Bill, I think I've told you this before, I want to be you when I grow up. I haven't grown up yet. I want to be so much like you. I respect and admire you. Thank you for carving out this really critically important space for dialogue. And it was a pleasure and an honor to be here with all of you.
Thank you, Nunu. I know that I have wanted it to be you when I grow up. So I know other people that I want to grow up and become as well. So thank you so much. In this conversation, we have learned that we actually have what we need, but we need to learn how we can leverage our resources that we believe that the panelists told us that actually we have what we need. We only need to get organized and work together with a collective voice. We need to be on the table of that decides what is being done for African migrants. And we need to join organization and we need to practice right now. If we feel like I don't know how to do it, we need to start right now and practice. And we have also seen that hope in getting we get hope from getting together and getting organized in spaces like this. And again, I want to thank you, panelists. I want to thank you for offering your knowledge and wisdom and your heart. And again, I want to be like you, and thank you for continuing to educate me and educating many others. You are educating on these virtual and in-person spaces. I want to thank the organizers for the event as well, for this wonderful platform, and for the privilege I had to be in this position, and for the audience for listening and asking questions. And I look forward to more conversations like this. Thank you so much, and I'm back to Abudu.
Okay, I think Sister Nana maybe had your last words too.
No, I gave my last words, brother. I said, practice so you can play.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So again, thank you so very much on behalf of the African Advocacy Network, all the staff, and our board of directors. I would like to thank everybody. It's been a long journey, And it's been quite a while. We've been thinking at African Advocacy Network, which is a direct service provider, how we can play, a role in terms of leadership, in terms of, being involved in the conversation about anti-Blackness, about equity, because, everything we've been talking about, comes down, to equity. How do you make means available, to a community so that, we can take care of ourselves, so we can feel empowered enough, and then, play also our role, in terms of leadership. And I would like today specifically, to thank Dr. Odoyan and Amida and Lizzie and Maritza. Maritza, thank you so much. For those who don't know, Maritza is a fellow at the African Advocacy Network, and a fellowship is coming to a term soon. So we're gonna be in touch. And also I would like to thank, all our co-sponsors, the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, the East Bay Community Foundation, the San Francisco Foundation, Bright Africa Network, Partnership for Trauma Recovery, and everybody, who's been out there. And my special thanks, to Professor Hing. When we had this casual conversation in the food line, at the event, I didn't know that, I just talked about it, but today, it has come true. And I think that, this resilience, that has been what has driven us, at the African Advocacy Network, over the years. And I think that, it's been paying. And we Black immigrants, we know, for our resilience. As they say, we like, the branch, we can bend, but we never break. And maybe this is what is really, bothering, those people who hate us. And we're gonna be there, and we're gonna play our role. But I would definitely like to say that, yeah, we have something existing. But, my advocacy has always been, yeah, okay, let's leverage that. Yeah, we come here with a lot of trauma. And sometimes, this is some kind of handicap, really to be active. But I think that, if we take, the work, from ground up, training, who we need to train, having some expert among us, to start, from what we have, build, organize, our communities, and then provide leadership training, to those, who really are interested and who can put the time, in doing that. I think that, we're going to achieve something. But again, we cannot achieve that, alone. And that's the time for me to say that we are not alone. And today we have the University of San Francisco, okay? And they have put so many hours, working with us, preparing this conference. And today it is happening. And I think that, we're gonna be looking around. We're gonna be looking for partnership. We're gonna be looking for capacity. We're gonna be looking for means. And so I think that, with the hope, with a lot of hope, I'm gonna stop here and then say that, yes, we can. We definitely can. We Black folks, everything has been done to us, but we're still around. We've been enslaved. We've been hated. We've been, killed. Everything has been done, yet we're still around. And I think that, that should be something, driving us. And at the African Advocacy Network, we're going to keep helping the community. Please, we have to educate, and each of us, at every level, has a role to play. We need to support each other, and I'm really happy to have like a partner like, Bright Africa Network. We're gonna keep working again tomorrow. It's been a long day, Nunu, but tomorrow again, we're gonna be there. And this is what it's all about. Sometimes people are saying, oh, you know what, I don't have time. There will never be time unless we make time for time. So, and I think that, this is extremely important. And then, with this hope, and I'm convinced that, next year, and I would like all of us, to make the commitment that, with the San Francisco Foundation, next year we're going to be gathering again. It may be a conference, a physical conference. So that's going to require all of us, to get together. And that's why, Nunu, Nana, Guerline, Amaha, in the coming days, let's start meeting up and let's start looking at, how we can leverage, the support that we have from the San Francisco Foundation and make something certain, bigger next year. So again, may God bless you all. And then, yes, we can, and we're going to make it. Thank you. Thank you to Jean-Pierre. Thank you, for your work. You've been wonderful. I can tell you, I would not be able to do that. So again, thank you. And then, yeah, may God bless you all again. Salam.
Salam. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're muted, Karina.
Hamida, would you like to just give some parting words? I know Hamida played such a big part in organizing all of us and just getting us all together. So I would like to thank, obviously, everybody, Adoubou and all your amazing team, Lizzie Bird and Maritza, but also I also want to recognize also Hamida and how much she also worked with all of you. So we're very grateful for your work.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been possible without the support of Lizzie and Maritza and, as well as USF and AAN. So I just want to say thank you to everybody, to all our panelists who came and shared their experience and their research, as well as our attendees who are in community with us and whom we hopefully, will see next year if we get to do this. And as Dr. Hing said, I hope this is an inaugural event and we get to see each other more and be in community. So thank you so much and have a lovely day. Well, the rest of the day anyway.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I spent my birthday with you all, so.
Oh, it's my birthday too, Guerline. It's also my birthday. It's my photo over here. It's my birthday marker.
Oh, Karina, it's your birthday today?
April 16th. Yes, it's my birthday. So happy birthday.
Call me after. Happy birthday.
Yes, definitely. Okay, everyone.